Remember 2004? MySpace was still cool, W was re-elected,
So what if the guy threw a shoe at me?
Marvin Heemeyer went all absolute Batman on some buildings in Colorado. The movie Dodgeball premiered in theaters. It was quite the roller coaster of a year. The more relevant reason for this trip down memory lane, however, is the release of the first Monster Hunter game on PlayStation 2. Monster Hunter was one of 3 games that Capcom developed in order to demonstrate the processing power and online capabilities of the PlayStation 2, which, according to Ryozo Tsujimoto, who came on board as the series producer in 2007, had begun to match arcade games in capabilities. The other 2 titles were Auto Modelista and Resident Evil Outbreak. Upon Monster Hunter's release, Tsujimoto considered Monster Hunter to be the result of the work of these 2 other titles, and he felt that the cooperative play feature provided an experience where players of any skill level could share in the accomplishment of defeating giant monsters. Monster Hunter proved a success, selling over 1 million copies in Japan, and also saw a decent amount of success in North America. The mainline Monster Hunter games, being Monster Hunter 1, 2, Tri, 4, and World, have all been met with positive reception. Monster Hunter Wilds is another mainline entry that's been reviewed favorably, and while I agree with that, I somewhat don't. We'll get into it. This is usually the part where I go into detail about the developer of the game, but I've already covered Capcom Co. Limited in the Dragon's Dogma 2 breakdown, so feel free to watch that next if you're curious about any of their history. Instead, let's take a second to thank the creator of Monster Hunter, Kaname Fujioka. Go ahead. Thank him. Monster Hunter Wilds starts out with you creating a character, as well as a palico, which is a faithful feline companion that serves as your hunting partner. It's often just you 2 against whatever unholy accident of biology the game world decides to send your way, so make sure your customizations are something to be proud of, because recustomizing either character in full costs actual money. Once you burn an hour of game time doing that, the story can happen. You are a member of the Hunters Guild, which is the main governing association in the world of Monster Hunter. The guild tasks its scholars, scientists, and hunters with documenting, analyzing, and protecting the various ecosystems they are deployed to, with the ultimate goal of preserving different creatures and preventing others from going extinct. One day, a group of explorers from the guild came across a lost boy who claimed to be from the Forbidden Lands, a harsh, uncharted section of the old world thought to be uninhabited. Nata's people, the Keepers, were wiped out by an unknown monster dubbed the White Wraith, and he was the only survivor of the massacre. Intrigued by Nata's plight, the guild authorized an expedition to escort Nata back to the Forbidden Lands, conduct a thorough ecological survey of its areas, and see if there's any truth to this White Wraith. After that synopsis, I can't blame you for being interested in the story, but for me personally, the story took a back seat to literally everything else, and I was not intrigued by it at any point after the beginning. Don't get me wrong, there are some moments that are cinematic as hell, but the narrative was just not doing it for me. Exploration in Monster Hunter Wilds is just okay. Each region has a base camp that operates at the same capacity as the gathering hubs from Monster Hunter World. They give you access to every amenity you need, from crafting items and equipment, to buying the most basic of items, to hanging out with other players in the same online lobby. A lot of players have been vocal about how much they preferred the 2 giant gathering hubs to the many smaller ones, but an honest-to-goodness gathering hub is coming as part of Title Update 1 on April 4th. Anyway, in addition to base camps, you have the freedom to establish pop-up camps in certain spots around every region. Unlike base camps, pop-up camps can be destroyed if a monster comes across them, but that depends on the safety level of the spot you choose to camp out in. Base camps and your pop-up camps can be fast traveled to at any time via your map or by using a Farcaster. Pop-up camps can also be customized with colors, patterns, and decorations, which I didn't know about until like 30 hours in, not that I was actively looking for a way to do that. I appreciate the variety of regions we get to explore. Whether it's an arid desert prone to lightning storms, a lush jungle prone to torrential floods, or a sea of oil that's literally a stone's throw away from actual lava. Every region is equal parts beautiful and dangerous. Throughout exploring each region, you'll see tons of ingredients, resources, monsters, and whatever else is native to the area, and it really does feel like the environment is alive, doing its own thing. There's aquatic life in the water, which you can fish for, endemic life on the ground and in the trees, which you can catch for research purposes, and small monsters, which will get in your way at every opportunity, but can be killed and carved for meat to eat or for crafting materials for certain equipment. If you look on the very handy and very detailed map, you'll be able to see the location of gatherable ingredients and materials, the migration of small monsters, and the path of the large monsters that are currently active in the region. Endemic and aquatic life can't be spotted on the map, so that will require you to head to a body of water or a certain locale to look for them yourself. Checking your crafting list can tell you what ingredients you need to make what items, and you'll be going through a whole lot of items. Be they healing potions, attack or defense buffs, stamina potions, antidotes for status ailments, ammunition for gun weapons, or tools like flash pods or poison gas. You have an item pouch and your item box. The former allows you to slot items for use while out and about, and the latter is where your item pouch gets its refills from and where everything else is stored. Since you'll quite literally live and die by your consumable items, you can create loadouts for your item pouch to take the thought out of item refilling, or to stock you up with specific items for specific regions or monster hunts. You also have radial menus you can slot items in and access quickly via controller or through keyboard shortcuts. I have my radial menus organized with one for healing, one for items that aid with capturing monsters, one for equipment like my capture net or mantles, and one for shoutouts or quick communication during co-op play. Items can be tricky in a few ways. The main way being that items are not instantly used. Some can be used quickly, some take much longer, some require you to be standing still, and most require your weapon to be sheathed before you get to use them, which of course makes it take longer, and mind you, usually there's a large monster, or two, thrashing towards you while you're trying to use the item. In case of an emergency, you can break out of the item using animation by dodging. Some weapons don't require you to sheathe them before using an item, and some skills can reduce the time it takes for you to consume an item, increasing the amount of healing or the duration of the benefits items provide you, and there's even a skill that allows any effects of the items you use to be spread to all allies in the vicinity during a hunt. In order to reduce the risk of your life and or limbs while attempting to use an item, you can turn to your indispensable ally, the Sacred. Aside from keeping you mobile while you use an item, Sacreds are the fastest way to get you around a region outside of fast travel. Some terrain only they can traverse due to how dangerous or restrictive it is. They can glide if you jump from a high place. You can use almost any of your items while riding one, and you can use ranged attacks while mounted on them, or leap from their backs with your melee weapon at the ready. Your Sacred can be called to you pretty much anywhere, whether you're in combat or not, so if you need to catch up to a monster or quickly escape one, your Sacred will be there for you. Note, Sacreds are not ghosts, so if you're getting your shit pushed in by a large monster and you call your Sacred for an immediate evac, it may get stuck trying to navigate around the monster in order to get to you. If you end up getting stomped before help arrives, you get thrown back to whatever camp you came from, giving you a chance to breathe and re-equip yourself before heading back into battle. Lastly, since this technically falls under the heading of crafting, there's cooking. The presentation of food and the process of cooking in Monster Hunter has been a series-defining staple for quite some time. Significant time and energy went into modeling and detailing the slices of meat, the sprinkling of seasoning, or the pouring of sauce to make every meal a deliciously palatable sight to behold. Cooking takes ingredients, and each ingredient provides its own buffs to your stats, as well as determining the total duration of the effects of the meal. You can use rations, which are very easy to get, to cook a basic meal, which maxes your HP and stamina gauges, as well as providing some paltry buffs to your attack or defense, and that meal lasts roughly 30 minutes. If you use real ingredients found through quests or harvested in the wilds, you can gain up to 2 skills as buffs, as well as maxing the duration of the meal's effects at 50 minutes. You can cook a recommended meal if you're short on time, or create a custom meal to tailor the buffs to the specifics of whatever mission you're about to take on. You can check your buff's remaining time at any time, and should it run out while you're mid-battle, you can find a safe place when you have a moment, whip out your portable barbecue grill, and cook a basic meal right then and there, ensuring you're always well-fed and ready to go. Over the course of the story, you'll meet a colorful cast of supporting characters, all of which are mostly memorable. Do enough to help these people out, and they will make you a fantastic meal that provides a 50-minute long buff free of charge. What could be better than that? Your other indispensable ally is the Palico. Something I learned while researching for this video is that the term Palico is actually a job title, given to the feline subspecies of the Linnean race, essentially beast folk but mostly friendly and adorable. The job of a Palico is to support their hunter in all aspects of their mission, gathering items, distracting monsters, and just generally keeping their hunter alive, and a Palico is nothing if not dedicated to their job.
When you were partying, I studied the blade.
Palicos have unique abilities such as bringing Vigor Wasps to you in order to heal you, bringing Pure Wasps to you to relieve you of status ailments, placing traps to stun monsters, pilfering armor materials from monsters while you are fighting for your life, and much more. As you complete hunts and level up, your Palico will too, improving the functionality of those abilities and also gaining additional abilities from unlockable side missions, like the ability to immediately revive you from death, or the ability to take flight in a little gunship and provide supporting fire. Palicos use their various abilities as the need arises, and the more useful the ability, the longer the cooldown, so try not to depend on them too heavily. Similar to hunters, you can find materials to craft weapons and armor for your Palico. Armor provides elemental damage resistances, just like they do for your hunter, but I don't think these resistances really make or break a Palico's ability to stay alive, so I just equip my Palico with the most stylish armor I can make, and call it a day. Palico weapons can deal blunt damage to more easily stun monsters and give you an opening, or severing damage which aids you in breaking parts off of monsters. If you want to legitimately solo every monster, you can set your Palico to standby and he'll wait safely back at camp for you to return from whatever you're doing. I say that, but hearing my Palico's callouts during combat reminds me that we are a team, and we've got a job to do. I've retyped this section multiple times, and I think the neatest way to explain the hunter is to take you through the process of going on a hunt, as well as articulate the game's core gameplay loop. There's 3 ways to go about starting a hunt. 1, you can open your map to check for large monsters, select the monster in the activity feed on the right side of the screen, and start a hunt right from there. 2, you can open your map to check for large monsters and go smack one until the hunt starts. 3, and this is the method I use the most, enter your tent at base camp or a pop-up camp and flip over to the quest menu. Here, you'll see a record of the main assignments you've done, every available optional quest that you can replay, field surveys you completed, investigations you've saved for later, and any event quests that are currently active. Lobby member quests, link member quests, and SOS flare quests are all used to join other active hunts from people in your current lobby or party. For right now, we can hit optional quests. By scrolling over optional quests, you can see a wealth of information about the hunt you're about to undertake. What monster it is, what possible rewards you'll get from the monster and or the quest itself, and you can even check the monster's breakable parts to see what parts you need to break in order to have the greatest probability of carving the materials you're looking for, if any. You can also see the region where the hunt takes place, the time of day, and the season. Either before or after the hunt begins, check your equipment loadout, make sure your item pouch is full, and make sure you've eaten. When you're ready, hop on your Sacred, who's already set to bring you straight to the monster you're after. In Monster Hunter World, you actually had to analyze scales or fibers and investigate tracks in the ground in order to learn where the monster currently is, like an actual hunter, and that feature is absent in Wilds, but I digress. Once you've got the monster in sight, it's time to fight. If you leap from your Sacred and hit the monster in the back, the monster will obviously become aware of you if they weren't already. Every monster always starts off by roaring, and the size of the monster, as well as your current skill level of the earplug skill, will determine how much that roar slows you down. Mount your Sacred and hop towards the monster again for another back attack, and this time you should mount the monster. While mounted, your stamina will drain gradually, and the monster will try to shake you off wherever you are on them. Simply switch between areas before you get shaken, and keep stabbing it to open wounds. Wounds are specific spots on a monster that are vulnerable to focus attacks, which can stagger or down a monster when hit properly. It's also worth noting that if your attacks are missing the mark due to the angle of your swings or the movements of the monster, holding the focus button will allow you to reorient your aim towards your target if you use it correctly. Once you open as many wounds as you can, use a focus attack to hit the wound, down the monster for a short time, and rain damage on it as best you can. Now that the battle has officially begun, it's up to you to get the job done. You can just damage it with your weapon, obviously, but why not get creative? Use environmental hazards like poison plants, elemental toads that emit a burst of damage when they detonate, natural traps like vines or pitfalls, or something simple like a big fucking rock to the back of the head. Make the monster wish it got to die a natural death instead of getting clowned on by some psycho and his cat.
But let me talk about the guy throwing the shoe.
Your slinger, which is your hunter's trusty wrist-mounted grappling hook, is what you use to trigger most environmental traps or hazards. In addition to that, it can also pick up most items or materials from a distance, as well as snatch pods from various sources, which can deal high damage or elemental status ailments to enemies depending where you source the pods from. Speaking of instances of large damage from the environment, turf wars can happen. A different large monster to the one you're fighting may pull up and start making trouble in your neighborhood. If the two present large monsters are natural enemies, a turf war will start, and one will put serious paws on the other. The outcomes are the same every time, and the excitement fades after the first time you see each of the turf war fights. If your monster loses, it may get to stepping, and the winning monster will almost certainly turn its sights on you. If the two large monsters meet and don't engage in a turf war, they'll just attack randomly near each other, making it hard to continue fighting the one monster you're there for. When this happens, just fire a dung pod, which is a wad of monster shit, at the monster you want to go away, and it will get the hint. I know I would. Dung pods are especially handy when two or more of the same large monster are present, because they will all immediately team up against you. As mentioned earlier, your Palico will be there to support you, taunting the large monster into focusing on it or healing you if you need it. In co-op with two people, both your Palicos will be on the field to help. In co-op games with two or more, Palicos will be absent and it's up to the players to support each other. Something you'll inevitably have to do if you're using a melee weapon is using your whetstone. Melee weapons have a sharpness gauge, and that sharpness decreases with every hit you land on a monster. The lower your sharpness goes, the less effective your attacks will be, especially if you're fighting a monster with armored body parts. When your Palico has the monster's attention, or while you're atop your sacred, use the whetstone to sharpen your weapon and regain your edge. As you craft higher rarity weapons, the maximum of your sharpness gauge as well as the size of each sharpness threshold will vary. Typically, metal weapons have a higher sharpness but lower attack, and bone weapons have lower sharpness but higher attack. Back to large monsters, most have special attacks they can use to either pin a hunter down or inflict a restrictive status ailment like frozen or webbed, keeping the hunter from moving. But another hunter who's paying attention can intervene to free you from the certainty of death. Keep wounding, battering, and beating the monster, ensuring that you focus damage on whatever part of the monster you want to break. Some monsters have attacks innate to certain body parts, and if you break the body part responsible for the attack, it will lose its elemental effect, most of its damage output, or both. Large monsters will periodically change locations, and their behavior will change when it's enraged, hungry, or almost dead. When it's enraged, a monster usually attacks faster and harder for a minute or two, and this can prove to be an issue in the more difficult hunts that come later in the game. When a monster is hungry, they'll become slow and sluggish and then go looking for small monsters to snack on in order to regain their energy. When a monster is almost dead, its icon on the map will have a skull next to it, and that means you could push in to finish it off, or trap it for a few more rewards using a trap and some form of tranquilizer, the most common being trank bombs. Tranks and traps are a little tough to source crafting materials for in the beginning, but once you've unlocked the ability to have certain NPCs farm resources for you automatically, they're as easy to craft as anything else. A word of advice, not all monsters can be trapped, and not all traps work on all monsters. Details on that can be referenced in the Large Monster Field Guide, accessible at pretty much any time. Once your quarry is killed or caught, you can breathe easy. If you kill the monster, make sure you carve it, and if you severed its tail, make sure you've carved that too. Kills give you 60 seconds to make sure you've carved and collected everything you need, and captures give you half as much time since there's less or no carving to be done. For your rewards, you'll receive crafting materials depending on what parts of the monsters you broke, and some appraisal items like decorations once you reach that point in the game. Appraisal items are items that reward you with something based on RNG. Additional rewards include Zenny, the primary currency, guild points, which can be used for many things like funding the placement of pop-up camps or saving investigations, and XP, which levels both you and your Palico. After each hunt, you'll return to the base camp of that region. My first move after that is usually to hit up the blacksmith, Gemma, to see what equipment I can craft with the materials I found. Once I'm done with that, done editing my build or tweaking my other loadouts, and done being distracted by Gemma, it's back out into the field to do it all over again. I guess now's a good time to go over equipment. You've got 2 slots for weapons, 5 armor slots, a talisman slot, and a mantle slot. Mantles are tools that can provide a short-term buff like easier dodging or automatic health recovery and take like 10 minutes to recharge. There are 14 weapons to choose from, each with abilities and mechanics unique to them. Some weapons are melee and some are ranged. Some weapons can guard against attacks, and for some you'll have to depend on dodging. Some are better at stunning monsters with blunt damage, while some are great at severing parts from monsters. In my case, I chose the Charge Blade and the bow as my 2 main weapons. The Charge Blade is essentially a giant sword and shield that can combine into an axe, and once the weapon is fully charged, the axe head spins for some insane damage output. For an added touch of cinematography, weapons with the ability to guard can engage in a power clash if they guard a large monster's attacks at the right time, granting the chance to push it off balance and get some good damage in. The Charge Blade requires you to be up close and personal, and guarding takes stamina, but some large monsters are so crack-addled that it's hard to keep up with them, so this is where the bow comes into play. The bow can use different coatings of elemental damage depending on what type of bow you use, to rain damage and status effects on the enemy, while you remain mobile and out of the way of the monster. The bow is definitely heavy on stamina, but once you get to know your moveset and the moveset of the monster you're hunting, there will be no wasted steps on your part. The bow's coup de grace is the Dragon Piercer because if you angle it right, as in through the front and out the back of a large monster, it will inflict a great amount of damage, especially if you've got a bow with high affinity, which is your critical hit rate. You can switch between your primary and secondary weapons while in the field, but your unequipped weapon is carried by your Sacred, so calling for a switch means you'll have to wait for your Sacred to reach you, which can be difficult at times, so it's easier to just enter combat with the one weapon you'll need for the duration of the hunt. I also dabble in dual swords because they are quick fun, and the Insect Glaive specifically to spite Rathalos. Fuck you, Rathalos. You're given time at the start of the game to read up on and test out the weapon types, and you also have access to a training area where you can practice your weapon as long as you need to. Not to mention, the difficulty of the monsters you'll face in the game ramps up very slowly, so even if you decide 20 hours in that your chosen weapon is not it, pick another and get back out there. You'll be fine. It also helps that the weapon controls are always in the upper right of your screen by default, so you won't be too lost on what to do with your hands. Armor and talismans in Monster Hunter Wilds are fairly straightforward. Once you slay a new monster or find relevant materials, a new armor set or a new talisman will make itself available for crafting at the blacksmith. The armor pieces list exactly what materials you'll need in order to craft them, and it's usually obvious what monsters you'll need to slay for each set. Some materials like bones or ore can be gathered in common form or a special rarity that only drops every now and then from a mining outcrop or bone pile, so you may have to do some light farming to get everything you need. Fortunately, as I mentioned earlier, gathering spots like bone piles or mining outcrops are clearly marked on the map and can be highlighted for quick automatic travel while on your Sacred. Armor has a base defense value, but also elemental resistances, which should be taken into account when facing different monsters. That brings us to skills, which I've mentioned a few times up to now. Skills are stat boosts or other enhancements that provide better bonuses the higher the skill level. Skills can be anything from attack and critical boosts, to granting you immunity to extreme cold or extreme heat in certain environments, to granting you additional items every time you gather resources or materials. There's over 110 skills to mix and match however you want to. Weapons and talismans can have 1 or 2 innate skills, but armor can have an assortment depending on some things. Low-rank armors have one version of an armor set and a few innate skills. Most of the high-rank armors have alpha and beta variant sets. Alpha armor sets have more innate skills at higher levels than their beta counterparts, but beta armor sets make up for this by having more decoration slots. Decorations can be socketed into slots on armor and weapons in order to manually add additional skills or level up existing skills on that armor or weapon. For example, I noticed my current armor set gives me a -15 resistance to fire elemental damage. If I slot in a few fire res decorations, I can bring that up to +5 fire resistance. Not ideal, but still better than what it was. Now, here is where it gets a bit techy. Decorations can be a level 1, level 2, or level 3. Level 1 decorations can be equipped in any type of decoration slot and typically provide 1 level and a skill. Level 2 decorations can be equipped in level 2 and level 3 decoration slots and typically provide 2 levels and a skill. Level 3 decorations are the Holy Grail. They can provide up to 3 total levels across 2 different skills. There are exceptions to the rules. Some skills can only be level 1, so they'll only drop as a level 1 decoration or as part of a level 3 decoration, and other skills can reach as high as level 6, meaning you'll need to utilize multiple slots to achieve that skill's maximum power. Decorations are appraisal items, meaning you never know what kind of decorations a quest will reward you with, so all you can do is hope that you get something useful. The same goes if you roll the dice on them at the melting pot in Suja. Pro tip: low rank missions make up the first half of Monster Hunter Wilds. The missions are not difficult, so you should be able to cruise off of one armor set for the duration of that section of the game. Once you enter high rank and gain access to high rank armors and monsters, that's when you should really check out other armor sets. Alpha and beta variant armor sets are saved to your equipment appearance menu, and you can choose for them to appear over your actual equipped armor set for cosmetic purposes, as well as change the colors of the equipment appearance for maximum drip, and Monster Hunter is all about the drip. Monster Hunter Wilds sits at mixed on Steam, and the main reason seems to be PC performance. Everyone's experience is different, and I've had no graphical issues since starting the game, but that could be due to the fact I recently got a new rig. I haven't seen any similar reports about console performance, so if you don't think your PC can cut it, and you don't have any videos to record gameplay for, I would go with console right now. As far as bugs or glitches in gameplay, there have been a couple times where a monster's pathing has gotten them stuck on a wall or something, and one of those times I was pretty much done with the hunt when it happened, so I had to quit out and retry it later. Again, fuck you, Rathalos. Next, there's people's dissatisfaction with the story. I do agree that the story is not that interesting, in my opinion, but the story for World also wasn't that interesting, also in my opinion. I'm here to hunt monsters and look cool as fuck while doing it. The story does not contribute to my in-game activities in any meaningful way, so I don't pay it any attention. Another complaint that I've heard about is the difficulty. Wild sort of feels far less challenging than World, but there are a few reasons for that. Chief among them, the fact that players of World spent a lot more time in Master Rank doing the hardest missions, so dropping into low rank again in Wilds felt like a cakewalk, and I can confirm this. High rank does introduce some tougher monsters as well as tempered monsters, which are harder on top of that. Once we get Master Rank missions and we're getting ground into fine paste on a daily basis by the toughest monsters, that tune will change. This video is long enough, and I'm tired of talking, so let's wrap this up. If I had to give it a number, I would say Monster Hunter Wilds is a strong 7 out of 10, and I mean that with every ounce of me. It's very good, but could be better. Overall, it scratches that Monster Hunter itch I've had since World, and after the 70 plus hours I've played so far, I'm still very much excited to see what the free title updates, crossover events, and expansions will bring to the game. Speaking of free title updates, the first one begins on April 4th, and it'll bring the Grand Hub as well as some new hunts and other events throughout the next month or so. I have my nitpicks about what parts of the hunting experience are lacking or have been cut since Monster Hunter World, but those aren't enough to overshadow my enjoyment of toppling massive beasts with my support cat and my combat chicken. But that's just my 2 cents. Monster Hunter Wilds is available now on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC for the price of $70. If you purchase a PC copy through the link in the description, Green Man Gaming will get it to you for 16% off. Before I forget, join the Cygnus Knight squad in-game. Use the squad ID on screen to search it, and let's do some hunting. As always, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you want to see more. This has been Ace Hunter, Cygnus Jason, and I will see you in the wilds.